Also joining us today is a veteran of World War II, Mr. Pete Maurin. Pete, it's glad to have you here.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, that's great. That's great. So how old are you, Pete?
I just turned 95.
95?
Yes.
How do you get that far? You're almost at triple figures here, Pete. What's the secret?
Secret is family.
Family?
That's the only thing that I can give all my credit to. Them guys really did everything for me, and I did everything for them, so that's why it all worked out.
Well, tell me about your family. Who is in your family?
Well, I got my oldest is a 69-year-old engineer, retired.
That's your oldest.
Oldest, he's a
boy.
He's an air pollution specialist. And then I have Joan, my daughter, who you had. And then I got a young son who has his doctorate in pharmacy. And he finished Pitt and then worked for DuPont for 15 years. And then he went to DuPont, says we're going to downsize. And he said, I don't want to go to New Jersey. So him and his boss started a company of their own.
In Pittsburgh?
No, in Delaware.
I see.
And they, within 3 years, they had 35 people working for them.
How about that?
And you know what happens after that. He said, we come home one day and he says, look, as people come into the office and had a big stack of money. Here it is.
Yeah.
So they sold out to them and he retired at 49.
How about that? How about that? So I hear you were married for a few years.
Yes. I got married during we had what we called the survivor's leave after my ship was sunk. And we decided to get married then and worked great ever since.
Where did you meet her?
Well, we used to love to do ballroom dancing.
Ballroom dancing? Who taught you how to do that?
Just picked it up by watching everybody else.
Did you?
And we did a lot of that at the Lawrenceville Boys Club.
Really?
Yes.
So you met her there?
Yes.
And how many years were you married?
71 and a quarter.
Wow! Pete, that's 7 decades.
My friend and he was kind of stuck on this girl, and after the dance, they generally go to some place like McDonald's during that time, and had to go to Millvale to get a sandwich or a cup of coffee, and then he would go. All of a sudden, she said, the girl said, my husband, Bill, not my husband, my boyfriend Bill is going to he's got the car tonight and we're going to go to Millvale and do some more dancing. So he said to her and she said to him and so on and so forth. And finally he says, well, see if Pete's boyfriend will go with the other girl. She says, no. Oh, I don't know who he is. I gotta see him. Where is he? So that started it.
That started it.
That started it.
That started it. So were you drafted or enlisted?
Oh no, I enlisted.
You enlisted?
Yeah, I had all intentions of going to the Marine Corps, and my friend, well, a lady from the draft board said to me one time, she says, you're going to have to make your mind up pretty quick because there's going to be a big call-up. So I went in to see my boyfriend's dad, who was a Navy veteran in World War I. And he says, well, I know what your family is. I had a big family. And you will take that and see what you can do with that. And he says, but let me tell you this. You come from a big family. I know you like to eat and you like to have something clean to sleep in. and that's where you're going to get it. You're not going to get it in the Marine Corps.
In the Navy.
So I says, oh, well, I guess Navy, here I come. So the following day I was down and enlisted. That was it.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Washington Trade, and there's another key there. During 1939, I decided to go what they call the Civilian Conservation Corps. They took all the teenagers, not all of them, most of them, and put them in camps all throughout the United States. At one point, there was over 50,000 teenagers in there.
Well, what were they doing?
We did all kind of work. I was at Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, Virginia, and we took care of the Mount Vernon Highway, cleaning up and do whatever it took to make it presentable, because, you know, that's a real attraction. So we took that, and the biggest thing I learned was how to take an order, how to be able to say, well, not, do I have to? No, you don't have to, you gotta.
Right.
So they said, well, I learned how to do that
In the Civil Conservation Corps.
in the civilian conservation. It only lasted 6 months, but it was really great.
Was it after high school or during high school?
During, I decided to take time off, and I only was in there 6 months, but I thought that was the greatest thing that ever turned me around. That was terrific.
So we're at the Civil Conservation Corps, and you think that it had an impact on your life.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it tells you, I've read in as late as last night on television, there was something mentioned about the same thing.
Really?
That they decided it was the best thing that ever happened to a guy that would be able to take an order and follow through on it, and to be able to say you accomplished something. And when you're 17, 18 years old, well, that's really something for you.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if all the kids in this country did that.
Oh,
But
boy.
That's not the case, but it would be, I think it would make us a better country.
Oh, my, yes.
Do you
it
agree?
would. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So now you go to the Navy, you enlisted in the Navy, and tell us about basic training.
Well, there's a long story with that, because if you read some of the stories, you would see that there was going to be a need for enough personnel to man 1,000 LSTs. LSTs was going to be the game winner for the war, I think it is.
Big ship.
Yes, it was 328 feet long, and it carried about 135 guys, and we didn't have enough people to be able to man these ships. And of course, you know, 95% of us guys, they didn't live on the water. We didn't know what the big water was.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got a large family, well, you wind up with, maybe you might go down the Allegheny River somewhere, that's about it.
Right.
But this going any lot of water, we never saw a lot of water. But that was the point, because, and at the same time, Russia was squawking for a third front. And that's what they was after. They wanted us to, well, not me, they wanted the Navy to attack the Germans from southern France, and then push them all together that much quicker. Well, that partly happened. In fact, most of it happened because when we wound up with all these guys, we did, as you said, mentioned about basic training. Basic training, we didn't have hardly any of it. The only thing we had was marching, drilling, that's all. Because they was taking, I don't know how the theory is or what it takes for them to decipher how to be able to pick out you go here, you go there, you got some kind of a mechanical ability, and you'll wind up going to some service school. Consequently, they build up all the service schools, and for thousands of men, they picked guys up out of each class and gave them a promotion because they figured that you're the type of guy that was able to take care of people, be able to follow an order, and know what to do in case the order comes wrong.
Yeah. Thinking of the Navy, did you have to be able to swim to be in the Navy?
No, that's what I figured I was going to be able to do. I couldn't swim.
You couldn't swim.
No, the only thing I had was a life jacket. Unfortunately, I had to have that when the ship was sunk.
Yeah. So where were you sent? Where was the first place that you were sent once you got out of basic training?
Well, we had to go, after that, I went to 2 service schools, and then we wound up down in Virginia, where they emptied out all these service schools and completed their courses, and then he was assigned to a ship down at Norfolk.
What schools did you go to? What did they teach you?
I went to the diesel school in Richmond, Virginia, and I was fortunate enough they saw something in me and they said, well, we're going to give you a rate. So I was second class then. And then they said, well, by that time you're going to go to advanced training in Cleveland, Ohio, where they had the exact engine that's on the railroad locomotives today. We have 2 of them for the main propulsion. And we went through all that, and then we went to Norfolk to meet all the other people, put them all together and get on a ship, and that's it.
Now, where'd they send you?
Where did they send me? Oh boy. I didn't do too much traveling, but we went all along the East Coast after we got the ship. And actually the ship consisted of the commanding officer, he was the regular Navy, chief boatswain's mate, he was regular Navy, and 1 seaman. The rest of us were land people. We didn't know nothing about this stuff. But we made it.
Did you pick some people up on that coastline?
Yeah, during that time, the fighting in the South Pacific got to the point where we was really taking a beating. And finally, some of the ships were damaged to the extent that they had to come back to the United States for repairs. Well, with the assumption that while the ship is being repaired, you will have so many guys taking a leave, and then everybody will be happy. Well, when they got to the West Coast, then they canceled all leaves. Nobody gets any leaves, and they did what they call a temporary improvement. And they made everybody stay aboard ship, but of course, you know, some of these American guys, they don't believe in that kind of orders. So they wound up over the East Coast. And where did they wind up? They wind up in a brig.
They went AWOL.
because they went AWOL. So we went to, going along the East Coast, we stopped at Pier 92 and picked up some guys there. Then we went to Boston and got some more people there. And then we went up to Nova Scotia and then over across the North Atlantic on this flat bottom boat, which was terrific.
And that
I was seasick most of the way.
You were?
And I had, the only thing I ate for 12 days was soda crackers. What a diet.
Yeah, right. So where did that ship, was this the LST?
Yeah, this was an LST. And we wound up in England, and then we went to, oh no, we didn't go to England. We went to the west part of Africa, and we was supposed to go to Casablanca, but they says Germans were already chased out of there, so we went up into the Mediterranean, and then there was plans for us to invade Sicily. So we got, after we had some extra training there, and why we got ready for invasion of Sicily. And the idea was we was to only go part way in, and we had a couple of ducks that belonged to General Patton. And they says, well, what we do is you open up the bow doors and lay a ramp down, and it could drive right off. Well, it drive right off and went down, sunk, and you call that a deep six, because it was too much weight. Well, then we got a plane, a German Messerschmitt, come out of the sun from starboard to port, and I never saw him until the bomb was already dropped, and I seen the explosion, and I turned around. I was a pointer on a 20-millimeter gun, and I turned around and fired one blast at him, and I knew I could never catch him up because he was going too fast. And I figured if I'm going to do something, all I'm going to do is throw shells onto the beach and maybe hit one of our guys, and I don't want that. So I just gave it one blast and shut it down, and that was told to abandon ship. So we went over from the port to the starboard, and right above the wheelhouse, and it was a distance of about 50 feet. And then we climbed down a Jacob's ladder, a rope ladder, and into the water. Then we was picked up by our small boat, and there was 4 or 5 other guys on the small boat with me. And then he said, well, take it to a transport, and then they will take it back to North Africa. So in the meantime, when the ship was hit, there was an LST-311 that was backing off. They had dumped their load, and they backed right up into the tail end of the 313 and took about almost all the guys, but us dummies up there missed anything. We didn't know nothing was going on there. So all we did, we was worried about getting off the ship and into the water and be picked up. But these guys, they just crawled on right onto the 311. They took most of them guys, and that was terrific. The 311 got a lot of citations for that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So that was to take care of that.
Saved a lot of lives.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And we we floated around Africa for about a month. And then they brought a refrigerated ship. And of course, they use that old theory that if you help unload, we'll get home that much quicker. So, of course, we held. Of course, we helped them and took most of it because it was about 6 stories deep, and the guys down the bottom, they were all kind of foul weather gear, and we was up topside in 100 degrees temperature. Well, we finally did that. Then we went over we picked up a ship and took us to New York. We didn't have nothing. We didn't have no clothes or nothing. The only thing we had was what we had on our back.
Was that survivor's leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 30-day survivor's leave, and that's the week we got married, yeah.
No kidding. How long did you know her before then?
About a year and a half.
You got back home, you said, I'm going to marry this girl.
Absolutely. We're going to this is it.
This is it.
Yes. We liked each other that well. That was terrific.
That's great. That's great, Pete.
And then we come back, and by the time my the 30-day leave was up, they says, well, you have to go to Ambridge and pick up another LST, 286. And that'd be great.
So it's right here. It was right here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So then we picked that up, and we went down the Ohio River and the Mississippi, and that again, just in time. He says, you're going to go up and you'll be ready for D-Day.
D-Day.
So we was in the middle of all them ships in D-Day.
So tell me about that, as you're approaching D-Day, what's going on?
Well, we were all young. We weren't old people. We were young, and we had to take one thing at a time. There was not too much action as regards to what we were going to do during D-Day. All we had to do was do the regular jobs that we were assigned to from day one. You followed orders, you go to your general quarter station. That's all there is. You do that all the time. And it's something that's not new. So it's very easy to get into that schedule of do this when you're supposed to do this, and then you wind up having everything is working the way you want it to work. That was terrific.
So what's your memories of D-Day?
Well, to me, we didn't shoot anything. I was a pointer on a 40 millimeter gun, and we never even fired a gun. The only time we fired a gun was practice shooting in the Atlantic Ocean. And didn't fire none during D-Day. And all we did was wait until we was able to take our turn to go into the beach to drop the soldiers off, and then we would back off. It's a type of ship that when you hit ready, you kind of estimate the amount of footage from where you would like to drop you have 2 anchors, rear anchor and the one at the bow. You drop the rear anchor if you have, I think there's 300 feet of cable that's tied to this anchor, and you drop it maybe 200, and you drop that in the water. And then by the time you hit the beach and you unload all your equipment, the weight is taken off the ship, and you're able to take up on the cable the rear anchor cable, and it would draw you off the ship, and eventually you'll be out in deep water right above your anchor and pick it up. But then we had to wait until the wounded was brought aboard, and we acted as a hospital ship. And we made 12 trips back and forth across the Atlantic, doing the same thing, until we had the storm, and the storm tore everything apart. The British had a lot of old ships, and wherever they got them, I don't know, but they made them sort of, tied them all together and made like a breakwater that you could bring your ships in and unload and it wouldn't be so rough. Well, that didn't work out because the storm came. Storm came and knocked the ships everywhere, knocked us everywhere. We ran into something, I don't know what it was, but anyhow, it bent our shaft. And we had to go to dry dock. After dry dock, they said, well, you're done with D-Day. You're going to go to southern France. So we turned around and back out in the ocean and in the Mediterranean and invaded southern France. And by the time we got through there, we was pretty well in charge of everything.
Yeah. So were you scared going, were you ever scared in some of these battles, or what do you remember?
I don't think I was ever scared. I'm not saying I'm a brave guy or anything, but come to the point where everything was routine. If you do your routine work, it comes easy.
But how about when the bomb hit your ship in Sicily?
Well,
I had to get your attention.
It got my attention. Yeah, it made a little bit of noise and a big splash, and it went straight through the ship and blew it all up in the air.
Wow.
And by that time, I was in the water and I couldn't see too much. So, no, actually, I don't think I was scared.
How about the guys you were with? What do you remember about the guys you were with?
There's about four, to this day, there's one guy, every time we meet, he says, thank you for picking me up out of the water. I helped him get onto the small boat.
Wow.
And he still remembers that, and he tells it to me every time I see him.
Well, yeah, you're going to remember that, The guy that helps you not drown. He probably really appreciates that. That's why he tells you all the time.
Right. Every time. Anyhow, the guy is terrific. You talk about people who, they're almost like your family. You get 130 guys. You don't even have, the only people that you have contact with are the ones that you're directly in charge of, or you have to do the work with to make the ship run. And that was going to the point where, well, let's do it and do it right, and then we don't have to worry. Then there's no waiting around for it. You got to do it now. There's no second guessing. Do it now. And that's the way it wound up.
So do you think that experience going to war impacted you in any way when you came back to the United States?
Well, I was in the a union cabinet maker for a year and a half before the war. I was making 50 cents an hour. And when we got back, I acquired at the same lumber company, and they says, okay, you can come back here, but you'll start at your second year. That'd be 60 cents an hour. I'm married. It was 60 cents an hour.
Was that good money back then?
It had to be. We made the best of it.
Yeah, you got to make do, right?
Absolutely. That was terrific.
So do you think that all that experience helped you as a person?
Well, I think so, because I never met you, and I respect what you're doing the same way I treat everybody else. I don't care who you are or what you are, we'll get along. But I have a story that dates back to the Civil War. And they happened to be a brother and an uncle who was beheaded or scalped. And their name was Kennedy. Kennedy was a politician not too long ago, was instrumental in saving the last building at the point. The last building from the Civil War. And he wound up helping them to keep that last building available because it was all scheduled to go to Shinley Park. And he was given a clock, one of them big mantle clocks, and they have it till this day. In the meantime, I'm playing basketball with this guy's son. And I'm thinking, well, whew, boy, I'm really going back that far. Also, I never talked to them. I talked to the dad, the one that did the father of the one who was instrumental in getting that part of that building left. But it was to the point where I kind of lost my thought.
That's okay. That's okay. So it goes back to the Civil War.
Yeah, it goes back to the Civil War, and here I am playing basketball with a distant relative of somebody from the Civil War.
That goes way back.
And just recently, there's a little girl by the name last name is Noska. She made the headlines in 2 days, and she had the biggest write-up I've seen in a long time as being one of they called her then when they was trying to do something good, big mouths, or they spit on you and throw water on you, you know. And then they finally got to the point where it all turned around. That some of the houses that were sold for $10,000 last year or 2 years ago, or privately, probably before this lady got started, and they wound up being sold for 10 times that much. And couldn't you imagine, if you know too much about Lawrenceville, you find out, where are you going to find a house in Lawrenceville that's worth $700 million? I don't know of any.
Yeah, Lawrenceville really has come along as of recent days. So how have you kept your experience of being in the war and being in the service, how have you kept that alive?
Well, I had a granddaughter, and she was in the 6th grade, and she called my home once, and my wife picked it up. She says, I want me to go to her school. And of course, my wife, she said, yeah, because she's a great go-getter.
Who, the granddaughter or your wife?
The wife.
Yeah.
So I went to her school, and there was a lot of activity. They listened great. They understood what I was telling them. And eventually, we got to the point where my daughter knew a history teacher in North Hills. And the history teacher says, I'd like to have him come to my school.
So you go to the schools.
Yeah, so I went to another school. I went to North Hills and talked to the kids there. At the end of every term, you know, they'd give me a class and I'd go there. And then he said, a couple of years after that, she says, well, I'm going to quit. I'm going to retire. and I want you to talk to my 6 classes. I said, well, first thing you do, you tape the first one, and if you like it, we'll use that. And anybody who knows me ain't going to take it, no matter how good it is, because I like to talk. So I did it, and I went to the school, and I talked from 7 o'clock in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon.
Holy mackerel, Pete.
Off and on, we had to change classes. There were 6 different classes. So finally let's see, now we're going to go. So we're at the last class of these 6, a group of 6, and a little girl come up to me and she says, could I give you a hug? I said, okay. Well, a couple of weeks later, the teacher came with a big envelope full of the kids' thank you notes. And she said, we told her about this girl, and she said, I know who that girl is. So they dug through the papers and found the girl, and in it she wrote, my grandpap was in the Navy, and I don't know a thing about it. When you gave me that hug, you were my grandpap. Oy, oy, oy. You talk about getting paid for trying to do something.
Oh my gosh, Pete.
That was worth $1 million.
Oh, absolutely.
So from then on, why, I'm involved with the Heinz History Center. There's one of the people over there are always after me for something when they could get together. If somebody needs a group to talk with, then they take 4 or 5 of us over there. Well, just recently, maybe 3 weeks ago, there's a place called the Clubhouse. And the Clubhouse is in an old building, but it looks like it's brand new once you're inside. And the kids have all got cancer, but you can't sell it on them. They're amazing kids, and they was all teenagers and younger. And we talked to them. That's where I get my kicks.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I mean, Pete, my uncle was a fighter pilot in World War II. And I believe that people that pass away still see what's going on in our life right here.
Yeah.
And I think he's watching this and he's really happy that I'm talking to you because you guys fought together in World War II. And I'm named after him. And it's an honor to be named after him and to talk to somebody like you. Because without you guys, we don't have the freedom, we don't have the liberty that we have in this great country that we live in. So
Right.
I really appreciate what you've done for our country. And that's why I wanted you to come today, because I have such great respect for our veterans.
Well, I feel that I didn't do very much. But like I said before, I did what I was told, and it came easy.
I think you did a lot. And I'm glad you were able to come and share your story. I mean, there's not a lot of people still on this earth at 95 years old.
Yeah.
So you've been blessed with that.
Oh my, yes.
And you're
yes.
still telling your story.
I live at an assisted living place, and the 4 of us got together, and a guy just joined us, and he was in Korea, riding in a Jeep, and blew it all apart, and he lost a leg on it. And he says, I'm the oldest. I said, how old are you? He says, I'm 87. I said, well, you got a little way to go yet.
Well, just the fact that you come out here at 95 years old and tell us a story about you being on these ships in World War II and the German plane sinks it right outside of Italy and you're floating around the ocean and you're here today, here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yes. What a blessing.
I'm very lucky.
Very.
And my commanding officer of my second ship was also Adams.
Oh, really?
Or R.C. Adams.
R.C. Adams.
He was a school teacher from out west.
Maybe I'm related to him.
Oh, you gotta be.
We gotta be. You know, there's a couple presidents named Adams. You know, so. But anyway, it's just such a pleasure to have you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming.
Well, like they say, some of these kids got to be told. And if they know, they see that they read about it in the history books, but to come and visit somebody who was actually there, though he didn't do too much, but he was there.
Well, Pete, when I do these interviews, you know, this is how I feel. I feel everybody has a story. Yeah. We all have a story. You have a heck of a story, and where you went, and who you met and what you did. And I always have takeaways from interviews when I do this, and I have to tell you that story you told about that girl in that school, I don't think I'm ever going to forget that.
No, I will never forget it.
You'll never forget it, but you shared it today, and it's terrific, and I really appreciate you sharing that story.
Thank you. I like it because I could see the goodness in these kids' faces when they come to me.
Yeah, and you're her grandpa.
Yeah,
that's. You're right. It's better than $1 million.
Yeah.
So that was really something, and your daughter was so terrific to help kind of get you here. Yeah. And please tell her thank you from me.
Will do. Thank you.
And I'm so happy that you can join us today.
Thank you. I'd be glad to do here. Glad to be here.
Well, my best wishes are always with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.